Hello, you guys. Quick lesson today about reading well. We're going to learn how to become better writers in this course. So you might be wondering, why are we doing a reading lesson here? Aren't we? Isn't this a writing class? Well, by being a better reader, we become a better writer because we're able to study how others write well. We're going to be looking at a lot of what I like to call model text. Essays and writing that other writers have done. We're going to look at what they've done, talk about what they've done well, and how we can copy those same ideas. I like to call them the moves that writers make. What do writers do that is done well? So we are going to be doing a lot of reading in this course. A second reason it's important that we do some reading in this course, we can't let those reading skills get rusty, right? The more you read, the better reader you are. A third reason we're reading, there's lots of reasons, it's important as an educated person to know what's going on in your world, especially as an educated person who lives in a democratic society. It's important to know and understand what's going on, what's happening in my world, what are some of the important issues going on. You'll be able to enter into conversation, intelligent conversation, and you'll sound smart because you'll know what's going on in the world. When you become voting age, you'll have experience reading and knowing what's going on in the world so that you're able to know who you want to vote for and who you don't want to vote for. To help us along with all of those goals of reading well, we are going to read an article of the week each week. I like to pull an article from just popular news sources. This week I pulled from The Week. Lots of popular news sources out there that I want to expose you to, get you used to, so that maybe one day you're going to go and you're going to read these news sources yourself. You're going to know what's going on in the world. You're going to be an educated person, and you're going to be reading a bit every week, a bit of nonfiction every week, just to bolster those reading skills. So lots of reasons to read. Good readers recognize that different reading situations require us to read differently. For example, if you're reading your independent reading book at the beginning of class that we read every day, you're just reading for enjoyment, for leisure. I mean, it's doing tremendous things for your brain. You're learning words, you're exposing yourself to ideas, you're seeing how sentences and paragraphs are built, really important stuff. You're not thinking about any of that, though. You're just sitting back and you're reading just for fun. When you're reading like your textbook for science class or social class, or a nonfiction article like we're going to be doing today, we tend to read a little bit differently. We might slow down our reading rate. We might pause and summarize or paraphrase what we're reading every once in a while. Those are things that good readers naturally do. One more thing that good readers naturally do is they read with a pencil in their hand. Not when you're reading your independent reading book, right? When you're reading just for fun or leisure, you're not going to read with a pencil in your hand. But when you're reading something that you have to know, like a textbook, or maybe some information your doctor gave you about an illness you're being treated for, or maybe you're reading some news or something that really is important to you and in your world, you're going to want to put a pencil in your hand. And you're going to want to annotate. I wonder if you've heard that word before, annotate. It means you're going to jot ideas that you are thinking about in the margins of the text. And so while you're reading, you're going to be focused on what you're reading, and you're going to be forcing your brain to think about what you're reading, so much so that you think of things you want to write down in the margins. It's called annotating. I'm going to sample. I'm going to show you how I annotate. And let me emphasize before I do this, there is no right or wrong way to annotate. There are no right and wrong annotations. There isn't a right thing to write in the margins or a wrong thing to write in the margins of text. What matters when you're annotating is that your brain is thinking. If your brain is thinking about what you're reading, you're going to understand it and you're going to remember it. Annotating forces you to think about it. I'm going to annotate digitally so you can all see what I'm writing, since I wasn't sure how to get a camera on my paper while I was writing. So I'm going to try to do this digitally. You guys are going to be doing this in pencil. What you're looking at right here on the screen is this week's article of the week. Like I said earlier, each week we're going to read one article from one popular news source, and we're going to annotate it and we're going to respond to it. I'm going to read the first two paragraphs, and I'm going to show you my thinking and my annotations. Are you ready? Here it goes. Climate change has arrived. This was published in The Week, which is a magazine that comes out every week. You can also access a digital subscription, published on September 6th, 2020. Kind of a timely topic with all the wildfires going on in the West Coast. The connection between hellacious weather, isn't that a good word? Like weather from hell? Hellacious weather. The connection between hellacious weather and man-made climate change is becoming undeniable. Here's everything you need to know. What has shifted? For years, climate scientists have been wary or nervous, doubtful of attributing extreme weather directly to man-made atmospheric warming. But that's changing in the face of historical heat waves and cascading natural disasters. Gosh, my first thought here, and so the first thing that I'm going to write in my margin here is, you know what? I kind of agree with this. I feel this same way. I too have wondered and have thought, really, is it man-made? Is it not? So I'm going to put a little text box here. You would be writing this with a pencil, but I'm going to write, I agree. I've wondered too. And there's my first annotation. Oftentimes when writers do this, they just underline or highlight. And I suppose I could highlight this phrase that climate scientists have been wary of attributing extreme weather. I could highlight that. But if I only highlight it, I might not remember why I highlighted it the next day I come back and look at this. And so that's why annotating, putting these comments in the margin really matters. I agree. I've wondered too. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. But that's changing in the face of historic heat waves and cascading natural disasters. In recent weeks alone, a derecho, I don't know what that word means. I wonder if the rest of the sentence will define that for me. In recent weeks alone, a derecho, a complex of unusually powerful hurricane-like storms tore through the Midwest. It does define it for me. Powerful storms, destroying homes and crops across a 745-mile path. Hurricane Laura crashed into the Gulf Coast with sustained 150-mile-per-hour winds, and hundreds of California wildfires incinerated an area the size of Rhode Island in just a week. You know what I'm thinking as I'm reading this? I'm thinking, yes, I've heard about these storms. Scary. Scary is what I'm thinking. The Southwest suffered a punishing heat wave with a high of 130 in Death Valley. Whoa, that's the annotation I'm putting there. If I were just using a pencil, I would just put an exclamation point there or maybe a star. That's really hot. 130 degrees, whoa, is what my brain is thinking. So I'm going to jot that down. 130 degrees in Death Valley, perhaps the hottest day in world history. It follows highs of 125 in Iraq and a record 100-degree day in the Siberian town of Verkhovensaka. I can't really say that. That's okay. And once in a 100,000-year event. Wow, it hasn't been over 100 degrees in Siberia for over 100,000. Wow, that's a long time. That's what I'm thinking. I better write that down. That's a long time. That's scary too. Okay. These freak patterns, researchers say, are almost certainly the result of mankind pumping 2.6 million pounds of CO2 into the atmosphere per second. Whoa, per second? That's a lot. I'm going to write that down too. Whoa, per second? That's a lot. I have a lot of thoughts in this paragraph, don't I? We've gotten to the point where, when it comes to extreme heat waves, there is almost always a human fingerprint, says UCLA climate scientist Daniel Swain. I said I was going to read 2 paragraphs. I think I had a lot of thoughts in that first paragraph. I think we're just going to go with one. I think you get the idea, right? You're not always going to have this many annotations, but if you force yourself to think about what you're reading while you read it, and then you capture those thoughts in the margins, that's a sign of a good reader. If you've read a couple paragraphs, a whole page, and you have had no thoughts, that's a red flag. You should be questioning yourself and you should be wondering, gosh, am I actually thinking about what I'm reading, or is my brain maybe wandering and maybe I'm thinking about tacos right now and I'm not actually thinking about what I'm reading? If that does happen and you did decide, nah, I guess I'm not actually thinking about what I'm reading, my brain has wandered, I'm not paying attention, make sure you go back and reread the parts that you weren't paying attention to. Putting notes in the margin is going to force you to pay attention. It's going to help you understand what you're reading. It's going to help you remember what you're reading. So I did one paragraph for you. If you want, you don't have to reread that first paragraph. Just grab your copy of your article of the week. Start with paragraph 2. Go ahead and add your annotations to the rest of this article. When you get to the end, you're going to write me a half-page response. I know this article up here says a whole page. If you watch this whole video, you win, because you only have to write a half-page response. Your response can be about whatever you're thinking. Maybe you want to summarize the article. Probably not, though. I bet you have opinions about this subject, about climate change and global warming. What are your thoughts? Maybe you want to pick a line or a word or a passage from the article and respond to it. Maybe there's just one line or one word even that piqued your interest and you want to write about that a little bit. Maybe you want to discuss a move made by the writer. We don't know a lot of moves yet. We've talked about narration. Maybe this writer used a story somewhere that you thought, wow, that was an effective move. I now understand a little bit more about climate change because of the story that was told. There might not be a story, right? So you might not want to write about moves yet, but half-page response. In the end, you are going to turn in a picture of your annotated article of the week into Schoology, and you're also going to turn in your half-page response. If you wrote your half-page response by hand, you're just going to take a picture of that too and turn that in on Schoology. If you typed it on Google Docs, you're going to link over to your Schoology account and submit that via Google Docs and Schoology. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.